Hello, everyone. So I want to talk about a project I made recently. And the story goes like this. I like to play Mahjong. And when I say Mahjong, you might be thinking about this one, but this is just a solitaire matching tiles game. And what I'm talking about is the 4-player game. It's actually played with the same tiles. It's a lot like a card game. Each player has their hand of tiles, and they have to pick the tiles, exchange them, and so on. It's a great game when you play in person because the game is fun. Handling the tiles is fun, but you can also make small talk. You can have some attention on game and some on socializing. And it's something I really missed during lockdown. And I tried to find a way to play with my friends online. And well, there are online Mahjong games, but not what I was looking for, because I like actually handling the tiles, and the games usually do that for you. They compute the score, you just click a tile and everything like plays for itself, because they are computer games, not board games. So the other solution I looked to was Tabletop Simulator. It's an engine for implementing different games, and people actually implemented Mahjong in there several times. But it's really for other board and card games, and for Mahjong you have to make some compromises. Like here, they use cards instead of tiles. So again, not what I was going for. So I decided to make my own, and here it is. I hope you can see it. So this is a simulator specialized for Mahjong, and you can see that the table layout is predefined. It's not completely freeform, but you can move any tile. And crucially, you see other players doing it, moving the tiles. And initially, I thought it would be enough to just show you the other tiles jumping, moving from source to destination, but actually seeing the actual cursor and players making the movement is very important. You really feel like the other people are playing with you. So I want to talk about how I implemented exactly that. And well, first of all, if we have a game like that, we have to determine what the player is actually pointing to with the mouse cursor, because the player is moving the mouse on the screen, but we have this game world which is in 3D. And we do that by tracing a line from the player, from player's eyes, through the screen, through the cursor, into the game world. And this is an important part, that actually we compute the position in the 3D world, because initially I was tempted to just cheat and compute the position on the table, sort of where it intersects with the table. But the thing is that the other players are going to see your cursor from a different angle. So if it shows on the table, it's going to look exactly the same for you, but wrong for the other player. So that was interesting for me. You need to treat the cursor as an actual object in the 3D world, even though it's just it really has a two-dimensional position on the screen. And here is an interesting effect that you can see related to that. On the left, I'm just moving my mouse up and down, but on the right, seen from the other player's perspective, we are seeing that the cursor is actually jumping up from the table, because we are pointing at the table, then at a tile. And I would say that it's a feature, not a bug, because you can actually see what the other player is pointing at. But more importantly, I want to talk about how did I make sure that the other players, the other people see what I'm doing on the screen, how to send the cursor position over the network. And first I went with the simplest solution, which is just, everything I'm doing, send it over the network. So every time we detect that the cursor has moved, we compute its position and send the message over the network to the other player and display it on the other computer. And this worked really well when I tested it on my own computer or on local network, but over the actual internet. It didn't really look that well. There was a lot of stuttering and the cursor jumping around. And this is because, for the movement to be really smooth, it would be something like 60 frames per second, which means sending 60 messages per second. And even one of these messages gets delayed, you see the mouse cursor jumping. So even if the connection is, we are in the same city as the server, usually it's not going to be good enough. So the next thing I did was, well, basically not sending so many updates. I sent the new position every 100 milliseconds. So I'm like sending 10 frames per second. And this actually looks like okay-ish. We played our first game this way, and it was playable. The animation is not so smooth, so it works. You can see what other people are doing, and overall, it's workable, but I wanted to do better. So to do better, I want to make this position, I want to make the movement smooth again. And my next thought was to maybe somehow compute the positions in between the real ones, so that even if we have 10 updates per second, we can display the motion in 60 frames per second. But the problem is that when we get a message about the position, it's already too late. The player has already moved to the new position. So we need to display it. And then the next position comes and we have to display that. So in order to display smooth motion, we would have to somehow predict the future. And actually, one of the things that I tried was predicting the future. So sort of like extrapolating the movement and seeing what happens, and drawing what would happen next. But this actually didn't look so well because the cursor was jumping forward. Then when the actual position came, it often was something different and the cursor had to jump back. So the real solution is to cheat, to lie to the player. We are simply pretending that everything is happening 100 milliseconds in the future. So everything is delayed. When we get a new position, we don't display it immediately, but we display it 100 milliseconds later. So whatever I do at time 0, you see at time 100 milliseconds. Where I am at 100 milliseconds, you're going to see it at 200 milliseconds and so on. And because of that, you can actually plot a smooth movement. One other thing is that, remember how I told you about delayed messages? Now we can do something about that, because everything is happening with a delay anyway. So if we have connection problems, we have some irregular delays, we can smooth it over because we are waiting to show the new position anyway. So the connection doesn't have to be perfect. I coded it, I tried it out, and it worked. Actually, it worked amazing. It worked much better than I expected. You can see it here slowed down 2 times, but already you can see that the difference is huge. Because the other cursor really moves the same as your own, and it feels like the other people are there with you. They're playing with you, maybe not sitting next to you, but playing on the same computer. And I was worried that everything happening in the game has this delay, and would people notice this delay? But since it's a board game, everything that people are doing is happening with a delay anyway. The motions are like every actions that they do is going to take at least a second, so nobody notices it. So that's the project that I made. I made it really to play with my friends, but I was happy to learn that other people ended up playing it too. And people say that it's the closest you can get to the real life Mahjong experience over the internet. It has been used for at least one tournament over internet. Some people use it as a tool for teaching the game so that they can show what happens in slow motion, explain everything in detail, correct people when they make mistakes and so on. And some people even use it to play with custom rules. So they play and invent new rules on the fly and they add it to the game. So it's really something you cannot do with a regular computer game. So here you can also see a blog post about me making the game. I described this cursor synchronization and some other aspects. I posted it also on the Discord channel. And really, that's all. Thank you for listening. And now I will be also staying around in chat to answer your questions. Thanks.